The 49 most miserable cities in America, based on U.S. Census data. The following list was created using U.S. Census data, which includes more than 1,000 cities, and is using factors such as commute time, crime rate, median household income and changes in population to determine the 49 most miserable cities in the United States of America. 49. Cleveland, Ohio. In 2010, Forbes declared Cleveland the most miserable city in the U.S., and it has frequently been called the mistake by the lake. 35% of the population lives in poverty, and a 2019 report found that half of those living in poverty were employed. 48. Compton, California. 40% of the Compton population is unemployed, and 23% lives in poverty. Although the city struggles with its fair share of issues, it's nowhere near as dangerous as it once was. In 1991, there were 87 murders. In 2014, that number dropped to 7. 47. Huntsville, Texas. All of Texas executions are done exclusively out of the Huntsville Penitentiary. Because of this, the Department of Criminal Justice is the city's biggest employer, providing nearly 7,000 jobs. Overall though, unemployment rates are extremely high in this city, and 35% of its population lives in poverty. 46. Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton used to be a thriving industrial city, earning the phrase, "Trenton makes, the world takes." Unfortunately, times have changed. Along with the decrease in production, Trenton suffers from heavy gang activity and major gun violence issues. 45. Newark, New Jersey. Similar to Flint, Newark has major problems with lead poisoning due to tainted water. On top of that, the city has struggled with racial issues, leading to excessive violence and riots. Of the city's 282,000 residents, 28% are living in poverty. 44. Passaic, New Jersey. Passaic's Youth Council has reported that their schools provide little to no sex education, which is very problematic for the city. They also struggle heavily with drugs and violence. A third of Passaic's population lives in poverty. 43. Miami Gardens, Florida. In 2014, Miami Gardens was called the stop and frisk capital of America after an estimated 57,000 people had been frisked since 2008. Cost of living in this city is sky high. Their water is obtained from a plant owned by the city of North Miami Beach, resulting in very expensive water. 42. Hammond, Indiana. Due to the industrial nature of the city, residents of Hammond have begun experiencing issues with air and water pollution, as well as lead contamination. Because of this, their population has fallen by 6.2% since 2010. 22% of the city's population lives in poverty. 41. Palmdale, California. Palmdale's average commute time is 42 minutes, which takes the cake on this list. The city has a population of 156,667 to 19% of which live in poverty. At one point in time, Palmdale was called the foreclosure capital of California. 40. Harlingen, Texas. In 2019, 2,000 immigrants were released in Harlingen, which put a lot of pressure on the city to help them. Harlingen is known to be extremely hot with very little rainfall. The city has 65,000 residents, minus 56% of which are working while 30% live in poverty. 39. Plainfield, New Jersey. In 1990, there were 719 reported violent crimes in the city of Plainfield. Although the number has decreased through the years, they still struggle with crime. 1/5 of the population lives in poverty, 1/3 are without health insurance, and the average commute time is 31 minutes. 38. Bell Gardens, California. Bell Gardens reportedly depends on a single casino for most of its tax revenue. In 2002, this casino provided more than half of it. Apparently, the city's major issue is overpopulation. 30% of Bell Gardens' population is living in poverty. 37. Warren, Ohio. Since 2010, Warren's population dropped by 7.7%. When GM closed a plant in town, major job losses came with it, resulting in a major downfall. Warren has the second highest rate of people struggling to find enough food in the country. 36. Union City, New Jersey. Out of Union City's 68,500 residents, 23% live in poverty. The worst part about living in this city is that it's only 1.28 square miles. Because of this, it is one of the most densely populated areas in the country. The city's average commute time is 33 minutes. 35. El Monte, California. El Monte used to be a thriving city, but its heavy reliance on auto dealerships has resulted in some recent struggles. 3 of the larger dealerships were forced to close, and the city continues to struggle with finances. 22% of the population lives in poverty, and the average commute is 30 minutes. 34. Albany, Georgia. In just the past few years, Hurricane Irma and a destructive tornado have ravaged Albany, resulting in tremendous damage and ruined crops. Along with the destruction, the city has a huge issue with crime and poverty. A third of Albany's population is currently impoverished. 33. Camden, New Jersey. The average household income in Camden is $26,105 per year, the lowest figure on this list. This city is considered to be one of the most dangerous cities in the country, but their crime rate is slowly improving. 37% of Camden residents are currently living in poverty. 32. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Since 2010, Pine Bluff's population has dropped by a whopping 14%. In just 1 year, 2016 to 2017, this city lost over 3,000 manufacturing jobs. As if that wasn't already a hard enough hit, the entire city of Pine Bluff was flooded by the Arkansas River in 2019. 31. Mansfield, Ohio. Mansfield used to be a typically successful city due to the availability of industrial jobs. Unfortunately, when that work dried up, so did the city. On top of that, in 2010, a GM factory closed its doors, leading to more job losses. Since 2012, violent crimes have risen by 37%. 30. Fort Pierce, Florida. Fort Pierce has a population of 46,000 and over 36% live in poverty. The city has to replenish the sand on their beaches every few years due to ocean erosion. Their economy was previously based on citrus farming, but changes in trade deals essentially ended the city's primary source of income. 29. Montebello, California. All around, Montebello is just not an ideal place to live. The average commute is 33 minutes, 14% of the population lives in poverty, and 19% don't have health insurance. The worst part, however, is finding affordable housing. A homeownership counselor told the New York Times in 2019 that prospects for first-time buyers weren't good and that opportunities to live there weren't growing. 28. Pasadena, Texas. Pasadena used to be home to the headquarters of the Ku Klux Klan, and racial issues still remain. The city is mostly working class and is based near petrochemical plants. Today, Pasadena is extremely divided. The north consists of mostly Latino residents while the south is mostly white. 27. Shreveport, Louisiana. Shreveport has hit some hard times in the past few years. In 2015, it suffered massive floods from the Red River and everything went downhill from there. Their murder rate doubled from 2015 to 2016 and they have had major issues with other crime as well. 26. Hallandale, Florida. The Wall Street Journal has described Hallandale as a once scruffy beach town, and locals have nicknamed it Hallandale Beach, due to its large number of strip clubs. 20% of the population lives in poverty, and more than 29% of people are without health insurance. 25. Youngstown, Ohio. Back in the day, Youngstown was the third biggest steel producer in the United States, but the factory began downsizing in 1977. With this came massive job losses and a decline in the city overall. In 2017, Youngstown was recorded as having the worst air pollution in Ohio. 24. North Miami Beach, Florida. Politics in North Miami Beach have been a bit messy lately as two previous mayors have been facing criminal charges for their spending. On top of that, 20% are living in poverty, 32% of residents don't have health care, and the average commute time is 31 minutes. 23. Reading, Pennsylvania. In 2011, the New York Times declared Reading the poorest city in the country. Through the years, a large number of factories closed down, resulting in major job losses. 36% of the population lives in poverty, and an estimated 44% of households are on food stamps. 22. Danville, Virginia. Danville was once an extremely wealthy town, but has since declined due to its textile and tobacco mills shutting down. The city's population has fallen 5.5% in the past 8 years. Now, they are trying to make a comeback by setting up solar farms and making use of their abandoned warehouses. 21. Hemet, California. It comes as a bit of a surprise that Hemet's population has grown since 2010, because the city is clearly struggling. 23% of the population lives in poverty, and the crime rate has risen dramatically. In 2016, 623 cars were stolen, 170 robberies were reported, and the police logged 398 aggravated assaults, which is the most this century. 20. Brownsville, Texas. Brownsville is one of the most patrolled cities in the country, due to the frequent illegal immigrant crossings. Because the city is on the Mexican border, it makes crossing over easy. This issue makes it very hard for Brownsville residents to sell property, and 31% of the population currently lives in poverty. 19. Linwood, California. Looking at the city now, it might come as a surprise that Linwood was once called the best place to live best. The city began to really suffer when Interstate 105 was built right through it. This resulted in plenty of residents leaving their homes, and numerous homes and businesses were demolished. 18. West New York, New Jersey. West New York is not the most convenient area to live in. The city struggles with major trash and parking issues. On top of that, the average commute is 37 minutes and 22% of the population lives in poverty. 17. Saginaw, Michigan. In 2018, 30 shootings were reported in Saginaw and the city was nicknamed Sagnasty. GM factories used to employ 25,000 people in the city, but the factories have since shut down. Since 2010, the population has decreased by 6%. 16. Jackson, Mississippi. This year, Jackson threatened to cut off water for 20,000 people because $45 million worth of bills hadn't been paid. The city has lost over 5% of its population since 2010 and almost 29% live in poverty. 15. Anderson, Indiana. Anderson was once thriving with 24 active GM factories employing a large part of their population. When these factories shut down, 23,000 people lost their jobs and the town declined from there. In 2015, the city was given $2.8 million to tear down 100 abandoned homes. 14. Macon-Bibb County, Georgia. Macon-Bibb County has lost almost 2% of their population in the past 8 years. 56% of their population are working and 26% live in poverty. The city's biggest issue is vacant property, which is visually unappealing. This city has about 3,700 unoccupied buildings. 13. Lancaster, California. Lancaster is basically a desert town that not many people can stand to live in. It has a population of 160,000, 51% of whom work, and 23% of whom live in poverty. This city has had major issues with meth addiction as well as neo-Nazis. Their mayor, Rex Paris, is doing everything he can to bring their city back to life. 12. San Bernardino, California. Out of San Bernardino's population of 216,000, 30% live in poverty. Home to the first McDonald's restaurant and the Hells Angels motorcycle gang, San Bernardino is enduring a tough recession, resulting in a plummeting employment rate. 11. Cicero, Illinois. Cicero is known for being Al Capone's private playground back in the 1920s, and the city is still fighting this reputation. Unfortunately, Cicero has had a major issue with gang activity for years. In 1999, the city voted to make gang members leave within 60 days or face a daily $500 fine. 10. Port Arthur, Texas. Since 2005, Port Arthur has been hit hard by 3 different hurricanes, leaving behind plenty of destruction. Hurricane Harvey in 2017 caused the city $1.3 billion in damages. Town officials are nervous that if people keep leaving, Port Arthur will fall below 50,000 people, which would make it ineligible for federal grants. 9. Detroit, Michigan. Between 1950 and 1960, 600,000 residents left Detroit due to the collapse of the manufacturing industry. Since 2010, Detroit's population has declined by 6%. Today, this city contains more than 43,000 abandoned buildings. It is also considered to be one of the most dangerous cities in the country. 8. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis recently lost 5% of its population between 2010 and 2018. The city struggles tremendously with crime and gun violence. In 2015, killings rose 33% from the year before to 159 deaths. Mayor Francis Slay has stated that fixing crime is currently their #1 priority. 7. Huntington, West Virginia. Since 2010, Huntington has lost 6% of its population, and it's truly no surprise. Huntington was a thriving coal town back in the 1900s, but has since come across hard times. Dealing with a massive opioid crisis, the city has been titled America's overdose capital. The city was also reported as the unhealthiest city in America back in 2008. 6. North Miami, Florida. North Miami has a huge issue with flooding, largely due to high tides. They are predicting that their 2,780 septic tanks will soon stop functioning correctly due to rising sea levels, which means wastewater ending up in places it shouldn't be. 5. Paterson, New Jersey. In 2011, the Great Falls, which was used to power factories, ended up flooding the city of Paterson after Hurricane Irene. Following this massive flooding, this city had about 1,250 abandoned homes. From 2009 to 2016, the city's tax revenue fell by 38%. 4. Huntington Park, California Huntington Park is 97% Latino and has been called an entry point for immigrants. Most of these immigrants are there illegally, meaning the political engagement is extremely low in the area. The city's high poverty rate makes it a real struggle to purchase/sell property. 3. New Brunswick, New Jersey. Out of the city's 56,000 residents, only 54% are working and 34% live in poverty. New Brunswick has major problems with crime, making it a difficult place to live. In 2017, the rate of assault with guns rose 64%. 2. Flint, Michigan. This one comes as no surprise as we are all aware of the water crisis Flint residents have been facing. With a 41% poverty rate, Flint is the most impoverished city on this list. In addition to the water concerns, Flint has a serious opioid crisis, a disturbingly high rate of violence, and 20,000 abandoned buildings. 1. Gary, Indiana. In 2017, a drug enforcement agent had this to say about Gary, Indiana: "We used to be the murder capital of the U.S., but there is hardly anybody left to kill. We used to be the drug capital of the U.S., but for that you need money, and there aren't jobs or things to steal here." Enough said.